coming to you live. That's right, I said live. Here from the beautiful studios in Maryfield, Virginia. It's the Fairfax Sports Report. My name is Greg Wyshynski of the Connection Newspapers. Jeff Graham of the Connection Newspapers right beside me. And our partner in crime, BJ Kubaroulis, is down at the Virginia AAA basketball semifinals downstate. And he will be calling in later with all sorts of news and notes from the big games today. And we've got, in fact, the results from today's games we're going to give to you in a moment, including the Herndon game, which just went final seconds before we hit the air. But before we get to that, we want to thank the folks that make this show possible every single week.
The Underwriters.
The Underwriters. CCI Screen Printing for all of your screen printing needs, 703-978-0257. And Quality Care Ford Service Center, servicing all makes and models, 703-383-6299. And just in case you're wondering, I do have a book out, Blow Up Bucks 10 Cent Beer, the 101 Worst Ideas in Sports History, and you can find it wherever you would buy books. That's all. All right, Jeffy, we got to get to this. We have so much to talk about tonight. I want to mention also, we're going to be taking some phone calls later. It's probably the first time we have done this on the Fairfax Sports Report in years. Taking your phone calls later. I'll give you the number coming up later on in the program, and it'll be your chance to interact with us, talk about the basketball, talk about Barry Bonds, talk about whatever you want, and we'll give you the number coming up later on. But first off, Jeff, let's talk about today's basketball action in our Nudes and Notes segment. What happened today downstate?
Well, Greg, let's start with our most recent game, a game that just ended a couple minutes before. Herndon advances by the skin of their teeth in double overtime, 72-70. This game was tied 70 all with 8.3 seconds left. Herndon defeats Tallwood. Tallwood had the ball, but Richard Gore for Herndon, a reserve, steals the ball, puts in a bucket with 1.3 seconds to go, and that is the final 72-70. So probably the most popular Herndon student at school tomorrow, Richard Gore. They win 72-70. The game earlier, Marshall and Booker T. Washington. Marshall kind of the Cinderella this year in this whole playoff tournament. They fall 48-46. It was a close game. Easily could have been a Herndon-Marshall final, but Booker T. Washington will be facing Herndon in the finals this Saturday. And on the girls' side, Edison defeats defending state champion Princess Anne 56-51. Dorena Campbell has 29 points. So Edison within one game, within one win of winning a state title.
There you go. All those games taking place at the Siegel Center down in Richmond. And big news, obviously, on the boys' side, Herndon winning, coming one step closer now to breaking that elusive schneid the Northern Region's been on when it comes to boys basketball and state championships. And this was a back-and-forth game. We were kind of following it as we go along. BJ calling in, us working the phones, working our sources to find out what happened. And boy, you got to give them credit. I mean, in the past, Northern Region teams in that sort of spot have not won. And to beat a team like Tallwood, to kind of keep your composure after blowing a big lead in that game, and winning in a tight spot like that, extraordinarily impressive. And you know what? You look at this, we're both Met fans. Let me give you an analogy. 86, I think you and I both remember it. You win that game 6, Buckner, ball through the legs, the whole bit. Game 7, it's an afterthought because you've got all the momentum. I think this game propels Herndon to the state championship. I don't even think Booker T. Washington is even on their minds right now. I think they roll the finals.
That very well could be possible. Herndon had a 12-point lead in this game going into the fourth quarter, and they I guess they struggled in the fourth. Tallwood put on a big comeback, looked to be in control. A couple times in overtime, they had 2-point leads consistently. But Herndon finds a way to pull it out, and this is a game that Herndon fans are probably out there thinking, are they going to blow it in the last second? And, but to have a big turnaround after you lose the momentum, in the fourth quarter there, their confidence is going to be really high going into the final.
Absolutely. And for what we understand, and I'm sure BJ will be able to kind of enlighten us a little bit more when he calls in later on down from Richmond. But Scotty Reynolds strong first half, second half not as strong. Missed a couple big free throws down the stretch. So Herndon kind of wins. I know he had a big shot in the overtime, but they sort of win, like you said, with a reserve making a big play. Benyon had a big play. So this team is much more than just Scotty Reynolds, and I think that we saw that in the regional tournament. We're starting to see it again in states, that this is a deep team, and I think teams like this win.
Right. Scotty Reynolds got Herndon off to a real good start. They were up by 9 points in the first quarter, and he had 9 points. And then Josh Heaton for Herndon, had a good second quarter. Danny Jones had a good third quarter. So you were kind of asking yourself, all right, who's going to be the guy that steps up in the fourth to put the nail in the coffin? And I guess nobody was able to. And it was real, back and forth in the overtime period. Herndon was down one, or actually up one, and Scotty missed 2 free throws in the overtime period. And then Tallwood comes back and takes the lead. And then, Victor Robinson hit a free throw to tie it up, and then Tallwood has the ball, so it looks like they're going to either have a chance to win it or go into a third overtime, and Richard Gore comes up with a big steal. I mean, these are kids that you don't normally think of, but to win a state title, you need these type of big plays and big performances to move on.
Absolutely. So just to recap, Herndon wins, Edison wins, Marshall
a close loss,
wins.
a close loss.
And TC didn't make the semis.
TC very well could have made the semis. I mean, even that was a close defeat.
Indeed it was. So that's the big news. Like we said, BJ Cooperula is calling in later in the show to give you all of the news and notes, some player reaction, Coach Gary Hall's reaction, I'm sure, to this amazing game down at the Siegel Center tonight with Herndon and Tallwood. Before we get to more basketball, we're gonna take a step back and look at the quarterfinals in a few moments. But some news and notes from around the region, and I think the big story in the region in the last week or so has been the specter of redistricting once again raising its ugly head. We had a story in the Action newspapers this week dealing with a proposal that was sort of voted on by the Northern Region Council. They agreed to explore realignment every 2 years based on size and geography. They could opt not to redistrict schools, and if they do decide to redistrict schools, the schools can fight it to the council. And clearly the 3 schools that are sort of, as Mike McGurk, the DSA over at Robinson said, are sort of on the block. Hayfield, a Division 5 school, about 1,700 students, their student population affected by the opening of South County.
Right.
Woodson, about 2,100 students, Division 6. Langley, about 2,000 students, also a Division 6 school. Those 3 schools could be potentially on the move. I know there's been a lot of talk about Hayfield potentially going to the National District. One other note from redistricting talk this week, Phil Levine, the Director of Student Activities at Oakton, had a proposal that would have made redistricting every 2 years mandatory. The region would have to do it based on size and geography with no appeal to the regional council. If they tell you where to go, you go. You can appeal to the state, but not to the council. But that motion was not carried by the council, so that one goes by the wayside. And then one other note would be just, there's like a barrel of monkey wrenches when it comes to redistricting and what the Northern Region wants to do. Loudoun Valley appeared to be on its way to the Northwest region.
Right.
They were put there by the Virginia High School League. Lo and behold, it appears that the Northwest region isn't very pleased with that decision, and they may fight that. And Mr. McGurk termed that the big unknown in regional redistricting, where Loudoun Valley might be. They, of course, were a sort of combination district team in the National District, and quite frankly, did quite well in the postseason when it came to National District and regional play. So
when you have so many schools, popping up, especially in Loudoun, and you have, new schools opening up, so they draw kids away from high schools. You have population overflow. You have, kids going to different schools. So it's no wonder, that you have this talk every few years. And we're going to see where Loudoun Valley ends up, I guess.
And it should be said that although there's been a lot of talk in the last couple of weeks about where Woodson, where Langley, where Hayfield might go, as of Monday, no formal proposals have been forwarded to the regional representative of the Virginia High School League regarding reclassification and redistricting. So it's all scuttlebutt right now. We'll see where the chips fall,
We know it's coming.
Absolutely. All right, let's take a step back and look at the quarterfinals. Let's find out how these teams got to the Siegel Center for tonight's games. And let's start off looking at the Edison girls. We should mention the Edison girls beat Monacan 53-36. Herndon 64-62 over Highland Springs in a hotly contested game, and Marshall a 46-38 upset win over Meadowbrook on the road. Let's start off talking about the Edison girls and their win over Monacan. Dorena Campbell, 21 points, 11 boards, 10 steals, 9 assists.
Almost a quadruple double.
Almost a quadruple double, absolutely. I mean, it is amazing the things that she can do. And I loved her quote after the game about her own performance. She basically said, it doesn't really matter what my stats were because if we didn't win, it wouldn't have meant anything. And to me, when you have a player of that caliber who just doesn't even care about what her stat sheet looks like at the end of the night and is so singularly focused on that team winning, that tells you all you need to know about why Edison is in the state finals.
And with those stats, you can tell that she's looking to get her teammates involved. I mean, 9 assists and she's getting double-digit rebounds and steals. I mean, it's just a complete player, and for someone who sometimes gets overlooked with Jasmine Thomas over at Oakton. I know last week we gave the FSN Player of the Year to Tiara Ruffin-Pratt, who had a great or a quarterfinal game at States. Dorena Campbell just continues to impress. This state playoff.
Completely. And in our defense, I mean, Ruffin-Pratt turned a T.C. Williams team into a state playoff team. Dorena Campbell's got some help. You look at Adria Crawford in that game against Monacan, 13 points, dominant in the low post. Tia Spalding, 6 points on the night. She's got a very good supporting cast, and the best thing about them is they know how to play defense. They've shown it time and time again this season. They're showing it again in the state tournament, and that's why I think they were right in this Princess Anne game, a game that I think a lot of people downstate probably didn't give them much of a chance
at. Princess Anne, the defending state champions, who brought their top 7 scorers back. So I mean, when you win a state title and you return your top 7, people are probably giving you another state title. But Edison held them to 13 points in the first half. The defense that you just talked about, they held Monacan to 30 points. So whereas Princess Anne started to make a comeback in the second half, this just shows you how important that first half was to get a 15-point lead. And Edison held on for the 5-point win.
And if there's one rap on Edison in this postseason, you look at that Monacan game. They overcame some defensive breakdowns on the outside shooters to win. Coach Diane Lewis very pleased with the intensity Edison showed defensively in the third quarter. Not so much, in the first half, but they really turned it up in the second half. Tonight, you had an Edison lead at halftime of 28-13, and then all of a sudden, Princess Anne is back in the game in the second half. Clearly. Edison's got a bit of a consistency thing going on right now, and they really, I think, have to shore that up when they get to the finals.
Princess Anne was probably going to try to come back strong after being, 13 points. That's for defending state champion. I'd borderline say that was embarrassing. So they came out and tried to make a game of it. But I mean, to have a player like Dorena Campbell score 29 points, she's that type of player that can carry you. If you're struggling in a half, she can score enough to push you onto a victory.
Now, it should be said, I believe Forest Park is their opponent in the state finals.
The state runner-up last year,
Correct.
And they have a player who a lot of people think could be Player of the Year, Monica Wright, and she's going to be playing big Division I ball. So that's going to be a great matchup between Dorena Campbell and Monica Wright.
And as you see, Forest Park knocking off Manchester on their side of the bracket to get to the finals against Edison. And that should just be a fantastic game. Those two teams pretty well matched on the girls' side of the bracket. Over on the boys' side, let's jump back to the quarters again. Marshall, 46-38 win over Meadowbrook, the Central Region champion. This is a game that I don't think a lot of folks thought Marshall could win. We sort of gave them a chance because we liked the system they were playing. They were playing controlled ball. They played smart basketball throughout the regional tournament. And when you're a 4 seed coming out of the Liberty, you got to be playing a strong system to be able to get where they got. So I thought they had a shot in this game. Kevin Weirin, the coach of the Statesmen, with this win said that the improbable has become believable. And I think there is no question that even though they came close and lost today, that for Marshall, this was a dream season.
Sure. I mean, believable. I mean, this is a team that probably hasn't been picked to win in their last 6 games, starting with when they beat Hayfield and then upset Madison in the region semifinals. They gave Hernan a little bit of a game, but I mean, Marshall could, like we said, they could easily be playing Hernan in the finals, and that just goes to speak. For a team that's not overly talented, teams that's usually undersized, they out-rebounded, Manchester team that was taller than them, and almost won tonight. Daniel Dixon led that team with 20 points tonight. I mean, just an incredible performance. I mean, this just shows that you don't have to always have the most talented team to win.
Now,
good coaching and just believing is big.
Now, just glancing over the stat lines from the Booker T. Washington game today and looking back at this Meadowbrook game, the big story from this game was the way that Marshall, which is a pretty undersized team comparatively to Meadowbrook, was able to sort of play on the boards. They had 26 rebounds. They had a lot of second chance baskets against Meadowbrook. In this game today against Booker T. Washington, you look at the stat sheet, no one had above 3 rebounds, it looks like.
Right, and I know Booker T. had some talented forwards, and their biggest forward, I guess, had 9 rebounds. So it's just one of those things that I guess maybe talent, sometimes it does catch up to you when it gets into crunch time. A lot of times you can just ride talent for a quarter or a half and get a victory. And it looks like Booker T. They're going to have their hands full with Hernan in the next round. It could be a great matchup.
You have such a thing about calling him Booker T because you want to get the WWF references.
The 5-time. 5-time.
One thing we should say, I mean, Kubarulis isn't here to say it, so we'll say it for him. It's the Daniel Dixon quota that we have to fill every week. We praise this kid. He had 19 points to lead all scorers against Meadowbrook, and then against Booker T. Washington.
A game-high 20.
Game-high 20. He was the heart and soul of that team. And really, it was great to see, even in that loss in the semifinals, he continued to be the star that he's become.
I mean,
this postseason.
he's a point guard, undersized. So and just to look at him, he doesn't have that look of a college player. But I'd be surprised if you can't find a coach out there that wouldn't take this kid, on their team. Really guided this team as a senior, and I hope he does get some college looks now. I know there was a bunch of coaches down there at the Siegel Center, so Daniel, go out and play on the next level.
Yes, go Daniel, go. And remember, just to harken back to our redistricting talk for a moment, I want to just remind you, Jeff, that Marshall is the smallest school in the northern region, yet made the state semifinals in boys basketball.
Smallest school with the biggest heart, I believe.
With the biggest heart. But just remember that next time someone says that it's not about football, that redistricting business. Okay? Just keep that little.
I think we're going to get some phone calls later.
Right, just keep that in mind. All right. Okay. So, anyways, Herndon 64-62 over Highland Springs. Again, it's the cardiac kids. This quarterfinal game had the intensity that made everybody say, "All right, they can hang in a playoff game." Mm-hmm. This semifinal game, I think, has convinced a lot of people, at least in this room, there's 3 of us here, I think we'll all agree, that they could probably be a state champion. But this Highland Springs game, I think, really showed their mettle.
Highland Springs, a champion, 3 years ago, state champion, beat South Lakes in the finals, a team that played really good defense, back then. And they proved their worth in this Herndon game. Herndon, comes off beating Marshall by 20, and it turns out that they have the toughest time in their quarterfinal game. But Scotty Reynolds hits 2 free throws, I guess, at the end of the game to clinch it for them. And Larry Benyon had a big block at the end of the game. So this Herndon team's shown that they can play defense. They can come up with some big defensive stops. Whereas in the past, Herndon usually relied on their offense to carry them as far as they would go. This time they're coming up with some big defensive stops in big games.
Clearly, and you look at Scotty Reynolds in this game. He had a game-high 23 points, 2 big free throws at the end to give them a 64-62 lead. And then the way it ended with the Benyon block on J3 on the baseline, and then Highland Springs misses 2 shots at the end. I mean, that's a great finish. Obviously, Highland Springs didn't hold up their end of the bargain to try to push that game in overtime. Right. But for Herndon fans, that's the greatest news they could possibly hear in a quarterfinal.
They're winning, and Scotty's not. He hasn't reached his season average in either of these 2 games, and they win. Whereas I think when you saw last year when he was scoring a lot of points, and I guess the players behind him weren't carrying their end of the bargain, or maybe didn't get a chance as much. This year, I mean, they're getting like Danny Jones, Larry Benyon, Chase Miller. A lot of those guys are carrying their end of the bargain.
Yet you talk about the scoring totals being down. There's no question, though, that Reynolds is doing things away from scoring the usual elephantine number of points he scores. You got to remember, this kid is a born leader, and he has led in this postseason. There was a point in the game against Highland Springs where he openly scolded Benyon during the game. And after the game, in the post-game comments, he said, "I got into Larry a little bit. I know his potential, and he knows that, and he knows when I get into him, it's all love." You know what? That reads to me like a Michael Jordan quote. I mean, that is something that Jordan used to do all the time on those Bulls championship teams, which is rip somebody.
Bill Wennington.
Yeah, Bill
BJ
Wennington.
Armstrong.
Yeah. Cartwright, I mean, all of them.
Bill Cartwright with his funky-looking free throw shoot.
He would get on him, and you know what the bottom line is? He would get him to play. And he would, sometimes he'd come off as a you-know-what, but he'd get him to play. Now, I'm not saying that Scotty comes off as a you-know-what, but clearly his being able to motivate teammates, even when he gives them a little bit of a public ribbing, in a big spot right there, is the mark of a leader.
Right, and tonight, Larry came up with, I guess a big... He got to the foul line and got hurt, late at the end of the game, and then a guy comes off the bench and hits a free throw, and then, the big steal. So, I mean, this team's inspired, and maybe Scotty isn't, maybe he doesn't win MVP of this, the postseason. I'm sure he's going to, but his teammates are also giving MVP performances right behind him.
Absolutely, and we'll say one more thing about Scotty Reynolds, which is that when he was a freshman, he had to miss games for Bible study.
Northern Region Championship game, he had to leave, I guess, in the 4th quarter.
And as we found out this week now, that when you're Scotty Reynolds senior star, the Bible study
Bible study will travel.
Exactly.
And they were down there, and I'm sure they were throwing up a couple of prayers in that overtime period because it looked pretty bleak at times, for sure. But
sounded like Tallwood was throwing up with a couple of prayers too, But
But
Absolutely. Well, we're waiting on BJ to collect some quotes, talk to some coaches, talk to some players, get a feel for the emotions after that big Herndon win. And like I said, he'll be joining us momentarily. Before we get back to the basketball with BJ down from the Siegel Center, let's talk a little bit about the other big event that happened this last weekend, which was the Virginia AAA State Track and Field Finals. And Jeff, we had some surprises. We had some good stuff. We had some bad stuff. The Lake Braddock girls finished second as a team. And that is not a big surprise because they are usually right in the mix of the teams that are in contention for titles. But we had a freshman girl from Yorktown. I will hold up her picture here. You want to hold up her picture real quick? This is the young lady we were speaking of here. This is Andrea Oaxaca. Now her last name is Oaxac.
It's got like 7 X's in it.
Yeah,
or?
as a Wyszynski, I can relate to names that are a little, there's a lot of W's and you throw in a couple Y's, that kind of thing. Oaxaca. And she is a freshman, and she won the girls championship. And I'm just very professional here. The girls 1,000 meter run championship with a time of 2:56.06 for Yorktown. The big story about her was last week in regionals, a week before the state finals at George Mason University Fieldhouse. She blew away the field. I mean, she had that race in hand. And what happens at states is you get all these guys coming up from the southern part of the state, and they're all big track heads, and they love the sport, and they know it inside out, and they come up here and they're saying, okay, who is this girl? And when we watched her down at the Invitational, she didn't do anything. So we don't think she's going to do anything here. That was an aberration. Mm-hmm. So it was beautiful to watch Oaxaca do what she did in regionals against arguably better competition at states, and she rolled to a win. I mean, the final margin of victory was just over a minute, or just over a second rather, but she definitely had that race in hand at the end.
It's the great thing about track, I mean, because a lot of times these kids may never see the kid they're racing at. Maybe they see him once, like, in the beginning of the season, then all of a sudden they're a completely different person when it comes to, the regional and state meet. So a lot of times you just have to throw strategy out the window. You just got to run your own race, and then you get maybe a surprise winner, but a kid who obviously worked hard for 3 months and won a state title.
Now, speaking of strategy, a kid by the name of Mike Spooner from West Springfield applied a little bit of strategy in his race, 3,200 meter championship.
Would that strategy be kicking butt?
Well, what he did is he was in sort of a duel with James Phillips from Oakton, and Phillips was running right with him, and it was a case where Spooner didn't really know what to do. He didn't think this kid was going to be running with him. So what he did was he basically slowed down to a crawl and kind of got the pace back under wraps, conserved some energy, and he knew that Phillips knew exactly what he was doing too. So it was a great little tactical move. He saved up enough energy. Then I can't make the whistle sound, but he just sailed the victory. Whoosh! 9:20.63 was the final number for Spooner to win the state championship in the 3,200. Jason Witt of Midlothian was second at 9:27. So a pretty big margin of victory there for Spooner in the 32.
Spooner and Phillips went at it during cross-country season with some other kids. Brad Saragusa from Chantilly, Herndon's Abe Dagnachu. So it's, to see some local rivals go at it in indoor season, where I'm sure we're going to see it in outdoor season that's starting up right now.
Right, and two rivals. Speaking about rivalries, in the girls' 3,200 meter run, a fantastic little race between Sarah Hadiji of WT Woodson and Aaron Klein of Lake Braddock. Now these folks know each other from cross country season. They were basically running side by side the entire race, and then with about 2 laps to go, Hadiji just blew away and wound up winning the race in 11:02. Klein was 10 seconds behind her almost, and after the race, Sarah was still full of energy. I mean, it was almost embarrassing to be interviewing her, and I think I was more tired than she was.
Usually, when you get them after the race, they're heaving and breathless.
Exactly, and she said it herself. I mean, she said, "Usually, I'm on the ground right now. I'm gasping for air." But she said after this race, she just was a bundle of energy and was probably could have gone another 1,600.
That's good news for the Cavaliers going into outdoor season. She's in such good shape right now.
Absolutely. And then, we got a little phone action. All right, let's go to the phones. I believe we have our friend down from the Siegel Center joining us now.
Gentlemen.
Mr. B.J. Cooperulos of the Connection Newspapers. What a good-looking man you are. They've got a nice picture of you up. You'd be very complimented.
Is that my 4th grade picture from Olin Mills?
No, it is not, my friend. But you're wearing the blue short-sleeve FSN shirt versus the Brokeback Mountain denim that Jeff and I are wearing tonight.
One of the perks of working with FSN, the
All right,
broke-back denim.
There you go, baby. Let's cut right to the chase. Herndon wins this game in double overtime. What is the reaction from players and coaches after this game? It looked like an amazing game.
Gentlemen, when I tell you that I am lucky to have been here, I can't rub it in your faces enough that you weren't. No, but really, guys, the sentiment afterwards, everybody's now coming out of the locker rooms and has filed into the media room, and just a real chummy kind of atmosphere. Coach Hall is talking philosophy and theories, and just the smile. Everybody's all smiles, and there's a lot of sentiment to go around. We should mention in the game, at the final moment of the game, Richard Gore, number 24, an underutilized or maybe under-known player in the Northern region who's been coming off the bench for Herndon all year, gets in and capitalizes off of getting his hands up, and Chase Miller gets the steal and throws it baseball style to Gore, who's open, and caps the win. And the reason I bring him up is because that was really one of his only points of the game. He had to go in because everybody was in foul trouble and whatnot, but Coach Hall mentioned after the game, he goes, Richard Gore, we weren't even on speaking terms last year. So this is a full circle emotional win for the Herndon Hornets. We'll get more into the game and all of that, and I'll give you a full report. But really right now what's overflowing after a double overtime game is all the players coming into the room, pulling up a chair, smiling, but really trying to take a deep breath and figure out what just exactly happened.
Well, what did exactly happen? I mean, we were kind of keeping track of things. We were in touch with you. We were working all the channels. How did it become so darn close after Herndon had such a big lead? Well,
Herndon had a 12-point lead. They built that lead slowly but surely. It's what they've done to teams all year. Scotty Reynolds got off to a hot start, and then they cracked down on him in the third and fourth periods. And, Scotty, he rebounded a bit, but it wasn't until overtime, and Tallwood got themselves to overtime relying on a brilliant post play of number 4. His name is Kelly Beidler. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. Big kid, uses his body well, has got a good outside shot. They really rode him through the third and fourth periods, and Beidler finished with 20 points to lead his team. They also had Mike Holloman with 19 and Darius James with 18 total on the night, but it was Beidler who stepped up late in the post and really got them going as the team cracked down on Reynolds and took his three-point shooting away. He torched them in the first quarter, hit 3 long-range Scotty-like bombs, and then they just took that away, and Scotty was human for 2 quarters, and then he became Superman again in overtime. So very, very well put together game by Herndon down the stretch. They should have protected the lead, but if you're going to blow a lead, you're going to come back and win it in overtime. I guess they're happy that they did. Everybody kind of wiping their brow right now, and Richard Gore is now officially Gary Hall's best friend.
BJ, I know we were talking about how Scotty was going to lead this team, and I know he struggled a bit in overtime, missed a couple big foul shots there in the double overtime period. But talk a little about his rear guard a little bit. I know Josh Hedden had a great second quarter, Danny Jones a good third quarter, and Victor Robinson had to come off a bench and hit a free throw, and Gore gets a steal. Talk a little bit about Herndon's rear guard.
Well, on the stat sheet right now, Josh Hedden only shows up for 8 points, but the kid hit 2 threes, long-range threes, and that's not his game. He's usually an inside banger, and he's popping out on the arc and hitting them early to keep them in it. And he was rebounding all over the place, and really just had a pretty complete game. Did get in a little bit of foul trouble, but rebounded well and came in. In fact, they were out rebounded on the night total 32-30. But down the stretch was really when they got the important rebounds and started getting a couple of second opportunities.
Seems like Larry Benyon had some nice putbacks, and he got hurt there a little bit in the overtime period. What's his status?
Larry Benyon's fine. 12 points. He did get them to the first overtime. Tipped one in off his own miss in regulation. 56-56 is where he went into the first overtime, but he tipped it back in, and then in the double overtime, Victor Robinson had to come in and hit the free throws that Larry earned because Larry was bleeding. So Robinson comes in, goes 1 of 1, hits 1 of 2 and gives them the lead there that they never looked back from. So a total team effort here. Scotty Reynolds did have 32 points, but it was a long time to get those 32 points. Everybody else really contributed to get the team into that state final. Danny Jones had 10 points. Chase Miller had 6 points. Critical down the stretch was Chase Miller. Robinson, I just mentioned him, 1 point, the free throw that put him up. So total team effort from every Herndon Hornet out there.
All right, Kuberulis, you know this Herndon team like you know yogurt sauce and a gyro. Let me ask you something. We kind of got the feeling here that this was the kind of victory that almost makes the state final an afterthought. You had a chance to see Booker T. Washington. You had a chance to see Herndon. Is Herndon going to roll through this Booker T. team or what?
Well, Herndon better not anticipate rolling through anybody after what we saw tonight. I mean, they're tipping their hats right now and saying all the right things, but, really, once they built that 12-point lead, I believe that they kind of rested a bit, and they should have been going for the jugular, especially in a state, semifinal matchup with a pretty good Tallwood team. Tallwood was no slouch. 2 Division I players on Tallwood, so they better not rest up and believe it's going to be a cakewalk. Booker T. Washington got the win over Marshall. I'm sure you guys have already gotten the word, but they got the win over Marshall at the buzzer. And you just take the Marshall game and you throw it out against Booker T. Washington. So if you're asking me to scout Booker T. Washington right now after seeing them play Marshall, I just can't do it for you. Because Marshall just is a totally different team that takes you out of your complete game. And we could see a totally different Booker T. Washington team against Herndon. So you take the Marshall game against Booker T. and you throw it out, and you wonder what Booker T. is bringing to the table. But we did get a look at a couple of guys. Miles Holly, 15 points. In the Marshall win for Booker T. And Mr. Brandon Plummer can hit the outside shot. Was one of the only ones that could hit the outside shot for Booker T. Washington, as they did get that last-second win at the buzzer from Miles Holly's hands. Turnaround hook shot.
BJ, we almost saw a rematch of the Northern Region Final. How disappointed were Marshall after the loss?
There was tears to go around, guys, but Coach Kevin Weirin said it best. I mean, these kids have gone above and beyond the call of duty and really have brought their community something special that they've never had or accomplished or seen at Marshall High School. First state tournament berth ever for the Marshall basketball team. But Daniel Dixon was pretty upset, and he had every reason to be upset. He went down at half court with about 3.4 seconds left, and he had to come out of the game.
Oh, that's a shame.
And Booker T. Washington used that injury time as a time to set up that inbounds pass, which Miles Holly turned around and hit the hook shot with. And it was just a little lob up from the inbounds into the middle of the paint. Holly got the ball, turned around, hit the hook shot, and it was over just like that. Such a long stretch. Marshall's come such a long way, and it was really disappointing to see Daniel Dixon not in the game. He was such a pivotal part of the game. The kid led everybody in scoring with 20 points. So he had a pretty impressive outing. He was hitting long-range threes, and it was just his day. A couple of crowd-wowing moments. He was schooling people and one style out there, but it was a long stretch for Marshall, a long time coming for the school, and Coach Weirin.
You there still?
Oh, I'm here.
All right, we had a little, the technical difficulty. The gremlins got in. I want to remind everybody, you're listening to BJ Kuberulis, sports editor for the Connection newspapers, live from the Siegel Center in Richmond, where he viewed all 3 state semifinal games. BJ, I want to ask you one more question about the Marshall game.
Sure.
It seemed like on the stat sheet, they didn't really have the rebounding night that they had against Meadowbrook. Were they not as good on the boards as they were in the quarters?
Well, they were out rebounded 29-19, and it was just the matter that Booker T was just bigger than them. And I talked to Coach Weir after the semifinal win over Meadowbrook, and he said, well, they should have gone inside more. Meadowbrook should have gone inside, and Booker T took that advice, did go inside, and that's where they did score the majority of their points. I'm telling you, these guys couldn't hit the broadside of a barn from outside of 6 feet. So they just went inside, and they hit 2 threes on the night from Brandon Plummer, and that was pretty much their only outside shooting. Everything else, they went inside, and they did dominate the boards. But that was to be expected. I talked to Coach Sanders over at Booker T after the game. I said, Coach, these guys came in as an underdog. Doesn't that scare you when you're, underdog teams can always jump up and bite you? He goes, well, first of all, they deserve to be here. Anybody who gets here deserves to play. But he also mentioned, he said when he saw him walk in, he goes, how the heck did they get here? And I think that's been the sentiment, guys, and we've talked about it on the show. That's been the sentiment for everybody. How did Marshall get here?
There you go.
BJ, on the girls' side, Edison will be making a trip to the state finals. They held a big lead at halftime, 28-13 over the defending state champs, and then held on. Take us through that game.
Well, Darina Campbell actually outscored the Princess Anne Cavaliers by herself in the first half. She had 15 of Edison's 28, and it was 28-13 at the half. So Darina totally dominated this ball game. She's coming off a performance from last week where she was 1 assist shy of a quadruple double. She had 25 points, 11 rebounds, 10 steals, and 9 assists. One more assist, she would have had a quadruple double. So they should have known her name. And when you're Princess Anne and you're the returning state champions, and you don't put a body or somebody on Darina Campbell, there's something to be said for that. She had 29 points tonight, 10 rebounds, and 3 steals. So she dominated again. They were out-rebounded. 37-32. Princess Anne had some big-body kids in there. Brittany Rogers, one of them. Kimberly Rogers, no relation there, but both could play. 12 for Brittany and 16 for Kimberly. So they had some big kids in there that could play. They couldn't pull it off. But same story for Edison. They had a big lead, and then they let it get away a little bit and got a little bit too close for comfort there.
Yeah, we were noticing a certain amount of inconsistency both in the semifinals and the quarterfinals for them. How do you see them stacking up in the state finals against Forest Park?
Well, Forest Park, I was here. I did get to see some of the Forest Park game. Those girls, it looks like they're hitting the weight room. These girls are built. They've got physiques like some boys basketball teams from the northern region. And in fact, they may stack up size-wise with Marshall.
Wow, jeez.
These girls,
those girls better watch out. The San Francisco Chronicle might write a book about them.
By the way, I can't wait to read that book, gentlemen. That's going to be
good. We'll talk about that book later on. But
one of the classics.
Absolutely. Hey, one more question about this girls' game. Actually, about the state semis that I wanted to ask you. Then Jeffy, I'm sure, has got one more to hit you with. But of the 3 teams you watched today from the northern region, who traveled the best? Who had the biggest crowd down there?
Well, always Herndon. Herndon always travels the best. The Herndon fans were, again, out and impressive. They rushed the floor at the end when they did finally get the win in double overtime. The fans were out and rowdy. Marshall kind of got the raw end of the deal there. Their game was at 3:30, and most kids who missed school today, they're not going to be questioned as to why they missed school, but not everybody is going to be able to take off from school to get down here. So Marshall was hurt by that, but they still traveled pretty well. Edison had a packed house. Their game was at 6 o'clock, so they did have a little bit more time to get their fans to travel. So I think a lot of it was travel time. Interesting fact, the Loudoun County girls who also played, their superintendent shut down their school so their kids could come out and travel and get out here. Fairfax County was not so lucky to have that opportunity to get the fans out here for Marshall.
Wow.
All right, BJ, what should we expect on Saturday? You gonna pick a winner here on the show tonight?
I refuse to jinx. So I will not pick a winner. But I'll tell you this: Herndon looks unstoppable. After what I saw tonight, this is an instant classic, gentlemen. I have not seen a high school game of this back and forth, blow for blow kind of nature. And they pulled it out. And I think tonight, as much as we've talked about it on that show and in the papers and everywhere in every venue we get the opportunity to do so, the schedule that Herndon played and all the powerhouses that they faced up against came through tonight in their poise and what they were able to do down the stretch and fight off a surging Tallwood team that can definitely play. What we saw tonight out of Herndon was epic and will be remembered by the town of Herndon and those that traveled here for years to come. And if they do get the win on Saturday, we mentioned it before, it'll be the first win for the northern region in 25 years. And I got a chance to talk to Coach Hall about that, and he told the kids that that's a lot of pressure for a young 16, 17-year-old kid. And he told them, look, you're not winning this for the northern region. You're winning this for you. You're not even winning it for me, he told him. He says, you're winning this for you guys. And I think that takes the pressure off when it's such a huge and situation where basically sometimes, we can add the pressure on when we say things and write things. They're just trying to win it for them. 25 years, if we stopped the curse, I guess you'd say, on the northern region, that'd be great too, but these guys are looking to win one for Herndon.
Hey, you reverse the curse. Hey, BJ, Cooperulis Connection Newspapers, thank you very much, sir. We will see you when you get back. And drive safely back up here, all right?
Miss you guys. I'll see you when I get back.
We miss you too, Schnookums. You come home, okay?
Okay.
Don't forget, we got a meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, we got a meeting tomorrow.
See you guys.
All right, Daddy. All right, BJ Cooperulis, Connection Newspapers from the Siegel Center, where you saw some great basketball today. All right, this is your chance. If you've got something to say, and the folks in the back of the place deem it to be something that we should hear on the air, the number that you want to call is 571-749-1129. That's 571-749-1129, which I discovered is 11 acts, is really, if you're going to spell it out.
Wow.
Okay, so that's the number if you want to give us a call. And the boys in the back think it's good, pop you on the air. Talk to us about some Northern Region sports. So, anyways, any surprises? I mean, from BJ's report.
Just how great these games were. I mean, they were all came down to the wire, and I mean just to hear the emotion going on down there. I mean, I can't wait to get down there on on Saturday. I may just go down and pay my $6 or whatever they're charging now and go be a spectator.
Come on, the media has its privileges. You don't get a program, but you can get in at least
That's
to see
right.
the game.
Those $5 programs.
There you go. I was impressed with. I think he did a good job capturing the emotion of that Herndon locker room after the game. Like I said, I think they're going to be rolling through that final, no problems. Hey, I think we have a phone call to get to. Hey, you're on the Fairfax Sports Report.
Hey, I'm just trying to figure out what do you think of Marshall's buzzer? Like the last shot buzzer against the Booker T. Washington. What's your feeling about that?
As far as the way the game ended?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I just think that's indicative of the way Marshall's played in this postseason. I mean, it was a close game. They lost it. I mean, from what BJ said, it just seemed like it was a case where Dixon maybe got hurt at the wrong time, gave Booker T a blow, and they were able to kind of reorganize and hit a shot.
It sounds like Booker T had a size advantage, and that was their bread and butter, and that's what they went to in the final play. Went to a kid inside who was able to take advantage of his size and Marshall's lack of size and gets the win. But it's a tough way to lose by 2 points any which way you go.
That's the most amazing thing to me is the fact that Marshall had such a good game on the boards against Meadowbrook, and then in this game really kind of got dominated, at least on the stat sheet, and BJ seemed to indicate that was also the case inside the arena as well.
Right, and rebounds is a big key, and maybe it's the atmosphere down there. Maybe just the ball just bounces a different way. This time a lot of times rebounding is just about heart and desire, but sometimes you think you can be in the right position and it bounces the one place that you can't get the ball. So
exactly.
But as far as talent wise, Booker T was a big has a big size advantage on them.
Thanks for the call there again. 571-749-1129 if you want to get on the air. And Marshall is again a Cinderella team. I don't think there's any question that is a team that could be completely content with the way things worked out. They didn't have to win a state title to have a good season if you're Marshall.
I mean, just to be in the top 4. I mean, this is a team I don't think we would have picked in the top 10 in the region at the beginning of the year.
I'm pretty sure we didn't. Did we win top 10? I
think we did an Elite 8. Back 4 months ago.
They would have been like 11.
Yeah,
or 12,
probably
something like that. Yeah. Wouldn't want to look too stupid for having forgotten them.
Yeah, but just what they did, it was amazing. I mean, it was Hoosiers-esque without them winning, but great performance.
All right, we got another call. Hey, welcome to the Fairfax Sports Report. How you doing?
Yeah, what's going on?
Hey, guy.
All right. I was just wondering. I'm hearing all this hype about Scotty Reynolds. I mean, the guy is okay to me, but to tell you guys the truth, he's not on some of the guards levels I've seen in the past 10 to 15 years at Northern Virginia. He's really not that good. I mean, he's okay. The guy's nice, but he's definitely not no Grant Hill, Mike Summey, Emmanuel Ramey, Dustin Halanga, Duke Cooper.
Well,
Mike Miller. I mean, I've seen a whole lot of kids that are way better than this guy. Doyle Brown.
Yeah.
Let me see the guy from Oakton. What's his name? Brown, Chris Brown, Marquez. I've seen a whole lot of them. Randy Dotson from Herndon.
I think of the names you mentioned, I think he's better than most of the guys you just mentioned. I think the thing about Scotty is that he doesn't let me be honest with you. Before this season, I'm completely with you. I didn't see that special thing that everybody sees in Scotty before the season. I'll be quite honest with you. And the one time I really got a good look at him, in all honesty, he was hurt, and that was against Hayfield in the postseason. Now, this season, he's a special player. He just is. I don't think that he is the Grant Hill, and the comparisons obviously have been made. They were made in our paper. But I think he's a special player, not only in what he's able to do on the court, and you can watch any highlight that we've had on the show from the regional finals, the regional playoffs, or any Herndon game, and he's a special kid who can do some very special things on the court. But like I mentioned before, from the leadership angle, from the character angle, this kid is a special player. He's not just a flashy stat guy. He's got all these intangibles going for him that I don't think I've seen together in a package with the kind of talent that Reynolds has.
Right, and some of those guys like Kalanga and, they mentioned Grant Hill. I mean, Scotty's going to be a point guard in college. A lot of the guys, he mentioned were forwards. And Scotty is not in a position to score, but he can score. And I think this year we've seen him get other kids involved. He's playing with kids. I don't know if there's a Division I player that he's playing with out there. Some of these kids may be able to go, play Division III college, maybe Division II. But I mean, he's taking this team on his back. And a lot of these players that were mentioned, some of the South Lakes kids, Grant Hill never won a state title, and Scotty's got his team within one win of winning a state title. And whereas maybe he's not scoring as much as he did last year, he doesn't have the 50, 60-point games. He's scoring in the 20s regularly and putting this team on his back. And like you said, the intangibles, those are immeasurable.
But he doesn't have to do that. There are players that have come through this region. You look at a guy like Sir Valiant Brown at Lee, who put up an amazing amount of points. But I think when Scotty goes to college, he's not going to be the leading scorer in the nation, but he's going to be a kid who will get his team to the dance and make some noise in the postseason, that sort of thing.
Here's a kid who we're thinking is going to start right off the bat, and I think if you watch him consistently on a night in and night out basis, you're going to realize how special a player he is.
Hey, welcome to the Fairfax Sports Report. How you doing tonight?
Hey, how you doing? I'm all right. My question is, I heard the guy right there say the talent level. That's what I was wondering. Who's Scotty playing against? He's not playing against anybody. Is there a D1 guard out there right now that he's playing against? Look, in the Northern region, Marshall went to the state tournament. When's the last time Marshall had done anything in basketball, period?
But what do you want? Who do you want to play against?
I want to play against.
You want Reddick to have moral eligibility? What do you want? It's like, just like in boxing. Like you're only as good as your competition. True, but when your competition is what it is, what are you supposed to do? He's clearly the best player of this crop of guards that we have in the state of Virginia. It's not his fault he doesn't have another D1 player to play against.
That is true, but I'm just saying, but when he goes to Oklahoma next year, there's no way that he's going to do anything. They're going to shut him down, and he's going to be one of the guards that nobody ever heard about, just like all the Northern Region guards are right now. Only reason that he's getting all this hype is because he's older than everybody out there, and he's bigger than everybody out there. That's all that is. He's playing against some little guards, and there's no talent level out there. Herndon winning the states, Herndon winning the state title. That's not even heard of.
Listen. If you're making the Magic Johnson argument that Scotty's a bit better because of his size, you might have a point. But again, that's the same thing. I don't think you can penalize the kid because he's tall.
No, I'm not making the saying that he's good because he's tall. I'm not saying he's good, period. I don't think he's good at all.
You don't think he's good at all?
No, I don't think he's good at all. The people that I've seen play, he's nowhere near that. And my man said that Duke and Dustin were forwards. They play guard in college now, though. They play guard now in college, if you didn't know that.
Right, yeah, but when high school...
And they were way bigger than him, so you think he's going to be able to play guard?
In high school, you're going up against 6'5" guys. In college, you're going up against 6'10" guys. That's why Scotty was playing shooting guard a lot last year. When he goes to Oklahoma, when kids are going to be bigger, he's going to be a point guard.
Exactly. He's going to be a lot smaller than all the guards. He's not going to be able to play against those 6'10" guys at all.
But let me ask you this. What do you say about the intangibles that Reynolds brings to the game? You got to admit he's got on-court talent, but along with that, have you been impressed with the way he can lead a team?
I played against the guy one-on-one. To tell you the truth, he's a good leader, but I played against him all the time. He's not that good to me. He has a lot of surrounding players that do good, but they could be better. Number 21, what's his name, Larry? He's 6'5". He's garbage for that to be that tall. To tell you the truth, their team is nowhere. Only reason that they're in the state championship right now is that South Lakes does not have a coach. If Coach Berg could coach, then South Lakes would be in the title championship right now. He has a squad of players, and Coach Berg just has no coaching ability. That's why Herndon is in the state championship right now.
I ain't gonna touch that one. But thanks for the call. I appreciate it. I think that. I don't think that you can listen. How many kids is Oklahoma pulling from the Northern region?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to fault the kid for not playing, playing in private school, where you're going to up against those kids. I mean, he's going to go on. I mean, he's not going to be matching up with 6'10" kids, on that level. He's going to be going up against point guards that are among his size. I mean, we have Khalid El-Amin led Connecticut to a NCAA championship with Richard Hamilton, and he was under 6 feet, and he's not even in the NBA anymore. I don't even think he made the team for 2 years.
And the Grant Hill thing is a product of the geography. I mean, that's the guy who you're going to be compared with if you're coming up and you're a D1 player. No one's saying he's going to go to college and be Grant Hill. No one's saying he's going to go to college and be Iverson. No one's saying that. But for a kid to come out of this region, go to Oklahoma and be, like you said, like an El-Amin, someone like that, that's an accomplishment.
Sure. I mean, usually the best kids from out of this region, for years they're going to real small Division I schools, and you think that's great. I mean, I think people underestimate how hard it is to get a Division I, scholarship as a basketball player.
That's right. You and me both. We both got one, obviously. So
I got it for bowling.
Bowling.
It didn't go very far.
All right, we got another caller. Hey, welcome to Fairfax Sports Report.
Hey, I'm just I don't know about Scotty Reynolds. Everyone's hating on Scotty Reynolds. He's a good player. I mean, he's all round. But I'd like to compare Scotty Reynolds to a player like Daniel Dixon. What do you think of Daniel Dixon? How can you compare him with Scotty Reynolds? Because I think Daniel Dixon is an amazing player. I think he's unpredictable. He's just like Scotty Reynolds. I just think what's your point? What's your view of Scotty Reynolds and Daniel Dixon? What's your comparison?
I think last week we when we picked our starting five for the region, we put Dixon and Reynolds in the backcourt together. I think Scotty as a player is a little bit stronger. I think if you look at his physique, he can obviously get to the rim. Both fast players. Scotty's a little bulkier. He really hit the weight room in the last couple of years. But Dixon's a great passer. I think if you looked at the last few games, they're both deadly from the 3-point range. They're both leaders. They both play pretty good defense. So I think what Reynolds has going for him is he's kind of been groomed over the last 4 years, and even earlier to be this stud college prospect. Where I think Dixon came on the scene a little later, and has some good things going for him now. I think he's gonna take this and springboard onto the college level somewhere. But maybe just Marshall in general doesn't get a lot of hype, and he's kind of an unknown.
And again, listen, you're not looking at a couple of Mel Kipers here, okay? So, but when we do talk to folks that understand what on a collegiate level you're looking for, they're all telling you that Scotty's the real deal. I mean, and you talk to any of these scouts that come to these games that see Reynolds play, and they tell you body type, the head on his shoulders, his just temperament, he's the real deal.
I'm just trying to figure. Do you guys do you see the excitement that Dixon brings in the game? I mean, I don't even go to Marshall. I'm just a random guy who just comes for these games, and I just enjoy Daniel Dixon playing. He just enlightens the crowd.
Absolutely, he was a fantastic player and a fantastic story, and there's no question that Marshall isn't even probably in the regional semifinals if Dixon doesn't do what he did this year.
Okay.
There you go. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Again, there's not a whole lot of comparison between the two. I think player-wise, I think they're on different levels, different echelons, if you will.
Yeah, I think what Scotty really added to the game in at least these past couple of years is his ability to just get in the lane and get to the rim. He was jumping out of the gym in some of these games. He almost had a dunk over Julian Vaughn in the South Lakes game, and Vaughn's 6'9", 6'10". Whereas as his freshman year, he was strictly kind of known as a jump shooter, a guy who was kind of that third option, spotting up. He can come off a screen and hit a big shot. But like we said, when it comes to college, he's not going to be a shooting guard, a three. He's going to be dishing the ball. He's for him, 8 to 10 points, on the college is going to be great for him because he's not going to be that guy who's going to be needing to score 25 points a game.
Absolutely. Well, thanks to everybody who called. I think that might be the end of the call segment as we were, because we have to wrap up sort of. Well, what's your take on the state finals? I know personally the Edison girls impressed me all season, especially defensively. I think they have a real chance in this game to win. But Forest Park has always been that team you sort of hear about. I've never seen them, but you always hear about them from folks that are kind of around the regional scene.
Well, like we discussed in the region tournament, where you have a lot of great matchups with star players leading their teams. You're gonna have that in the state finals. Forest Park, led by Monica Wright, going against Dorena Campbell and Edison. It might just come down. I think Campbell's going to have another one of these nights where she scores 29 points and comes near a quadruple double, because Forest Park is a great team. And the boys, it's kind of hard to tell. I remember when Southlakes made the state final against Highland Springs, and after the semifinal games, I thought Southlakes had it in the bag. I remember telling one of their assistant coaches, you guys got Highland Springs easy, and it was a 15-point game in the finals, 50-35. So it's a lot of times you can't tell by just looking at kids. You just really have to figure out how Highland Springs was back then was a team that just was gutty and just did everything basketball wise. They just did right, and their fundamentals were good. So, but I think Herndon, like we said, the momentum that they're going to take from this game is really going to propel them. We'll see how they start the final game.
That's a good point. I think that you'd have to look at their consistency in the semifinal game and hope that they're going to be able to play a more complete game in the finals. Mm-hmm. I will say this though: the one thing we didn't hear from BJ, and I'm sure it's information that he wouldn't be able to get anyway at this point, is Benyon. And trying to figure out what that injury was and trying to figure out his availability for the state final. I think having the spread between today and the final on Saturday is clearly going to help them if it's not a major injury. But they're going to need him against Booker T. Washington, Miles Holly. You're talking about 14.1 points per game, 6'5" forward. They're going to need a presence inside to handle that.
Right, and for Scotty Reynolds, I think you might see his best game. I know he's maybe underperformed a little bit in these two contests against two good teams, but like J.J. Reddick, how he was able to carry Cave Spring to a title. Let's see what Reynolds and his team is able to do.
There you go. All right, folks, want to mention coming up, Fairfax Sports Network. Of course, the FSN Game of the Week is going to be the Virginia AAA State Finals at the VCU Siegel Center, Sunday 8:30, Tuesday 8, Cox, Comcast, Verizon, Channel 10. Should be fantastic basketball, and I'm sure producer Brian Nern and the rest of the crew will put on a great show. Also, check out the web, www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Photo galleries, news and notes from the basketball tournament itself. A lot of stats up there. Great job on the website. Want to thank you, CCI Screen Printing, for all of your screen printing needs, 703-978-0257. And also you, Quality Care Ford Service Center, servicing all makes and models, 703-383-6299. And buy my book on Amazon. So, I want to thank everybody who called. Very exciting night here on FSR. We don't usually get the phone call thing going on. Maybe we'll have to revisit that at some point.
Nobody used any profanity, so that's always a good thing.
That's always a really good thing. Hey, it's hard for me week to week not to use profanity.
That's true.
I'm glad on the live show the callers are on their best behavior and all that good stuff. Thanks for watching, everybody. Want to say condolences to Kirby Puckett's family.
Yeah, and it's a sad day for baseball fans. USA lost in the World Baseball Classic today to Canada, yeah, of all people. But the NFL has reached collective bargaining agreement for 6 years, so the salary cap's going up. So Redskins fans, you can breathe a little sigh of relief.
That's right. And Chad Pennington is still a Jet, and I will be sad. We lost to Canada, huh?
We lost Canada 8-6. We were down 8-0, and we were getting booed. So our U.S. hockey team sucked, and I guess baseball team's following.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We always appreciate it. And they didn't even have Larry Walker, I bet, on that team, did they?
Bunch of nobody.
I have been informed that it's totally